Değerli katılımcılarımız, Avrasya Üniversiteler Birliği ve Avrasya Yükseköğretim Zirvesi ve Coursera sponsorluğu ve işbirliğinde hazırlanan EURIE Online Training programına hepiniz hoş geldiniz. Etkinliğimize açılış konuşmalarımızla birlikte başlayacağız. Daha sonrasında EURIE ile ilgili çok kısa bir bilgi verip konuşmacılarımızın takdimi noktasında moderatörümüz Sayın Ayşe Deniz Özkan'a sözü bırakacağım. Açılış konuşmalarını yapmak üzere Avrasya Üniversiteler Birliği ve Avrasya Yükseköğretim Zirvesi Genel Başkanı Sayın Doçent Doktor Mustafa Aydın'a sözü bırakmak istiyorum. Hepiniz tekrardan hoş geldiniz.
Ben öncelikle EURAS'ın bu webinarı için toplantıya katılan çok değerli eğitimci dostlarımıza hem Avrasya Üniversiteler Birliği hem EURIE Başkanı olarak hoş geldiniz diyorum. Önce onlara saygılar ve sevgiler sunuyorum.
First of all, I would like to thank and extend my gratitude to all our panelists here with us today on behalf of, as the President of Eurasian Universities Union and the EURIE Higher Education Summit. We are very grateful that you're here with us today.
Evet, yani hep bu belki de EURIE'nin ve EURAS'ın yaptığı birçok etkinlikten bir tanesini de bugün yine yapıyoruz. Tabii ana temamız yine hep beraber bildiğimiz gibi korona ile beraber, yani Mart 14 itibariyle başlayan süreçte eğitim öğretimin bu konuda nasıl etkilendiği ve nasıl çözüm üretmemiz gerektiği.
Of course, we've been doing these kind of webinars all through this period, and today with our valuable panelists, we're going to be discussing the period that started with March 14, the COVID-19 pandemic, and how it affected the education system overall.
Bugün de EURAS olarak bu toplantıyı gerçekten teknolojik alanda özellikle bu pandemi sürecinde üretmiş olduğu çözümlerle kendisinden söz ettiren partnerimiz Coursera ile birlikte yaptığımızdan dolayı da hem kendilerine çok teşekkür ediyorum hem bu çalışmaların da devamını diliyorum.
And as EURAS and EURIE doing this training with partners such as Coursera, we are very grateful and we want to thank them for joining us today.
Tabii süreç birçok soruyu da beraberinde getirdi.
And this process we've been in has brought many questions along with itself.
Bu önümüzdeki süreçte yüksek öğretim nasıl şekillenecek?
How is the higher education gonna be shaping in the future from now on?
Aynı şekilde dijitalleşmeyi nasıl yapacağız?
And how we gonna manage this digitalization during this process?
Farklı şeyler söylüyoruz. Hibrit eğitim mi olacak? Sadece online mi olacak? Dünyanın bazı üniversiteleri yaptığı gibi, veya yeni bir kavram gelişti, harmanlanmış eğitim. Hangisini aktif olarak uygulayacağız?
What are we gonna do? Are we gonna use the hybrid model? Are we gonna do a complete online system just as we see in various universities? Or are we gonna use the new term that we use, the blended education system? What are we gonna do in the future?
Müfredatlarımızı nasıl zenginleştireceğiz? Ders içeriklerimizi nasıl ekrana yansıtacağız ki öğrenci onu etkin ve aktif olarak anlayabilsin?
How we gonna enrich our curriculums? How we gonna reflect the classes into a screen so that it will be as effective as the classrooms?
Ve öğrencilere yeni yetkinlikler kazandırmak durumundayız. Bunlar nedir?
And also the students has to get some new talents and skills, and how we gonna manage that?
Bütün öğrenciler bizim online olarak vereceğimiz, yani dijital platformlardan vereceğimiz çalışmaları, dersleri alabilecek, takip edebilecek teknolojik altyapıya veyahut da imkana sahip mi?
Are all our students have the capabilities or the infrastructure that is needed for the online education in the digital platforms?
Eğitimi sadece salt eğitim teknolojileriyle, araç ve gereçleriyle sürdüreceğiz. Ne kadarını yüz yüze yapmak zorundayız? Hangi alanlarda uygulamalı eğitim yapmak durumundayız?
Are we going to continue the higher education system via online platforms, or how we going to do the applied classes, and how we going to do the face-to-face part of the education?
Ve tabii ki bu dijital platformlarda ders içeriklerimizi sunarken bunların oyunlaştırılması, grafikleştirilmesi, animasyon haline dönüştürülmesi, hangi yöntemi takip edersek öğrenci psikolojisine, öğrencinin eğitim algısına pedagojik olarak daha etkin ve aktif olarak hitap etmiş oluruz.
What kind of tools and skills such as the gamings and the animations that we have to use in order to reach to the students in online platforms, and what should we just equip them with in order for them to receive this education?
Tabii ki bir başka yön daha var. Yani burada evet hedef kitlemiz öğrenci ama hedef kitlemiz olan öğrenciye o bilgiyi aktaracak olan eğitmenler var. Yani biz hep şunu söylüyoruz ya, öğrenci insan elinde şekilleniyor. Yani eğitmenlerin bu konudaki bilgi becerisi nedir, tecrübesi nedir? Onlara nasıl bir yaklaşım, onlara nasıl bir eğitim vermemiz gerekiyor?
And of course, there's another side to this issue as well. We have the academics that are going to be giving these classes via online platforms. Are they ready for this? Are we going to need extra tools and equipment for them as well? As we always say, they are the ones who are shaping the class, shaping the student, and shaping the education.
Bu noktada eğitimcinin eğitimi, yani teknolojik olarak online ve dijital platformlarda eğitimin verilmesi konusunda eğitimcinin eğitimi de ayrı bir önem arz etmekte, önümüzde önemli bir problem olarak bulunmaktadır.
And also this problem of training for the trainees and the education for educators is also another important issue that we have to deal during this time.
Kabul etmek gerekir. Belirli yaş üzerindeki eğitmen arkadaşlarımızın teknolojik bir kısım eksiklikleri vardır. Hatta çok affeder arkadaşlarımız teknoloji özürlü diye ifade ediyoruz.
We have to accept this, especially some of our professors who are just in the later stages of their life as having quite a little trouble dealing with the new technologies, and I mean, excuse me for saying this, but they can have a little bit technological inabilities as well.
Bütün bu sorulara baktığımız zaman önümüzdeki en sağlıklı modelin eğitimde öğrencinin aktif olması, yönlendirici olarak da eğitimcinin, yani öğretmenin etkin bir şekilde sistemin içinde olması halinde biz hibrit modelden sonuç alabiliriz. Yani öğrencinin aktif, öğretmenin de yönlendirici rol üstlenmesi lazım.
In order for this hybrid model to be successful, the students has to be active in the system, and of course the academics need to be somewhat of a show guidance to them in order for the system to be successful.
Ve şunu asla unutmamamız gerekiyor ki bu sistemi uygularken yerel yaklaşımlardan uzak durmak zorundayız.
And we should never forget that in order for the system to be successful, we need to just get away from this local, national mentality and understanding.
Biz üniversiteler evrensel değerlere sahip, yarından sonrasının dünya insanını yetiştiriyoruz.
As universities, we are just raising the future generations that are going to be universally and equipped global citizens.
Onun içindir ki kesinlikle global gereksinmelere, ihtiyaçlara cevap verecek nesli yetiştirmek için uygun modeli hayata geçirmemiz lazım.
So in order to have the new generation that we are giving the education, they have to have all the global necessary skills to be successful in the global world.
Ben inanıyorum ki bu webinarda değerli konuşmacılar yukarıda ben çok özet olarak saymış olduğum soruların cevaplarını, yanıtlarını burada aktaracaklardır.
I'm sure and confident that all our valuable panelists will be going deep into these topics that I tried to mention briefly in my speech right now.
Böyle bir açılımla ben kendi düşüncelerimi siz değerli akademisyen ve eğitimcilerle paylaşmak istedim.
I just want to open the discussion to you all and share my ideas and thoughts with you so that you can continue from this point on.
EURAS'ın değerli yetkililerinden de bu çalışmaların nihayetinde raporlaşıp bütün katılımcılara rapor halinde, bütün üyelerimize rapor halinde göndermelerini onlardan talep ediyorum.
And I will ask for the EURIE coordinators to just take the results of this webinar as a report and share it to all our participants after our training.
Ben faydalı bir toplantı diliyorum.
I hope this will be a very productive
Ben
meeting.
tekrar bütün katılımcılara çok teşekkür ediyorum.
And once again, I want to thank everyone who's participating here
Ve
today.
koronasız, sağlıklı eğitim ve yarınlar diliyorum.
And I wish corona-free, healthy tomorrows and an academic life to all of us.
Thank you very much again.
Sayın Başkanımıza açılış konuşmaları için çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Etkinliğimize başlamadan önce çok kısa olarak sizleri EURIE ile ilgili bilgilendirmek istiyorum. Bildiğiniz üzere EURIE Avrasya Yükseköğretim Zirvesi son 5 yıldır ülkemizin ve bölgemizin, hatta dünyanın gururu haline geldi. Bölgemizin ve ülkemizin en önemli, dünyanın da en büyük 3. yükseköğretim etkinliği haline geldi. Bu sebeple gerek danışma kurulu, gerek üniversite partnerlerimize, gerekse de destek olan tüm Türk üniversite temsilcilerimize özel teşekkürlerimle sözüme başlamak istiyorum. Avrasya Yükseköğretim Zirvesi önümüzdeki sene 3-5 Mart 2021 tarihlerinde yine Lütfü Kırdar Kongre Merkezi'nde gerçekleştirilmesi planlanıyor. Bu kapsamda bildiğiniz üzere bir expo alanımız var. Study in Turkey altında Türk üniversitelerimiz hem Türkiye'yi hem Türk yükseköğretim markasını temsil etme hem de işbirliklerini geliştirme şansı elde ediyorlar. Hem de uluslararası eğitim ve benzeri konularda yükseköğretimi ilgilendiren temalarda düzenlemiş olduğumuz konferans programında hem Türk üniversitelerimizin iyi uygulamalarını izleme, dinleme, uygulama hem de diğer kurumlar, dünyanın her yerinden gelen alanında uzman konuşmacılarımızın konuşmalarını dinleme şansı elde ediyorlar. Coursera sponsorluğunda gerçekleştirecek olan Avrasya Yükseköğretim Zirvesi'nde yine bizler sizleri 3 gün boyunca ağırlamaya ve sizleri hem Türkiye'nin Türk yükseköğretim markasını daha ileriye götürülmesi noktasında desteklerinizi bekliyoruz. Uluslararası eğitim, kalite, rankingler, araştırma, COVID-19 sonrası süreçler ve süresince uygulamalarımız olarak Türk üniversitelerine sizlere sunum yapmak üzere web sitemizi ziyaret etmeye, zaten bu bilgileri sizlerle daha sonrasında paylaşıyor olacağız. Hem sunum yapmanızı hem de yurt içinden ortaklarınızla birlikte panel yapmaya davet ediyoruz. Bizler yine dünyanın her yerinden konuşmacılarımız, fuar alanında katılımcılarımız ile sizleri görmekten mutluluk duyacağız, memnuniyet duyacağız. Burada olan üniversite partnerlerimiz de var. Her yıl üniversite partnerlerimize yenilerini ekliyoruz. Sizler de üniversite partnerleri arasında yer almak, EURIE ile çalışmalar yapmak, özel resepsiyonlar, sponsorluklar yürütmek veyahut da özel paneller düzenlemek için bizlerle iletişime geçebilirsiniz. Bizler her zaman sizin üniversitenizin hem daha ön planda olabilmesi hem de Türk yükseköğretimin daha iyi temsil edebilmesi için her konuda işbirliğine ve desteğe hazırız. Bir ambasador ekibimiz var. Eğer sizler de bu ambasador ekibimizde yer almak ve hem üniversiteniz daha etkin bir şekilde EURIE'de temsil edilmesini sağlamak hem de kişisel ve profesyonel gelişiminize katkıda bulunmak istiyorsanız ambasador ekibimizde yer almanızdan onur duyarız. Ben sözü çok fazla uzatmak istemiyorum. Zaten bu bilgileri sizlerle mail ortamında paylaşıyor olacağız. Bizleri sosyal medya hesaplarımızdan takip etmenizi önemli hatırlatıyoruz. Bugünkü etkinliğimiz boyunca fotoğraflarınızı da EURIE Online Training hashtag ile paylaşabilirsiniz. Bizler de EURIE ve EURAS sosyal medya hesaplarımızdan bunları tekrardan paylaşıyor olacağız. Bizler Avrasya Üniversiteler Birliği ve Avrasya Yükseköğretim Zirvesi EURIE olarak birçok etkinlik düzenliyoruz. Her ay farklı etkinliklerimiz var. Alanında uzman konuşmacılarımız, EURAS üye üniversitelerimizin temsilcileri bizlerle birlikte yer alıyorlar. Bizleri yakından takip ederseniz diğer etkinliklerimizde de sizleri görmek isteriz. Ben sözü uzatmadan bugün hem EURIE Online Training yapımında emeği olan hem de bugünün moderatörü olan sevgili Ayşe Deniz Özkan'a sözü bırakmak istiyorum. Hem Coursera yetkililerimize katılımından dolayı hem de organizasyon komitesi olarak bizler katılımınızdan dolayı sizlere şükranlarımızı sunuyoruz. İnşallah önümüzdeki etkinliklerde tekrar görüşmek dileklerimizle.
Thank you, Pınar. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I'm the conference program coordinator for EURIE. Again, just as Pınar has told, we would like to see Turkish universities, our colleagues, to be represented in the EURIE conference program. Coursera is one of our partners, not just for this event, but for EURIE 2021 as well, and they will be also doing a panel and presenting with a number of guest universities as well during EURIE. So this is just our first activity together. I would like to introduce our panelists. Kerry Houchen is a partnerships director at Europe, Middle East and Africa in Coursera. She's an education professional with 20 years experience in Latin America, Europe, Asia, and most recently the UK. Kerry has spent a large part of her career building partnerships and supporting universities with digital transformation, job relevant, and online education at scale. Our second panelist today is Adam Lewis. Adam is the skills transformation expert in Europe, Middle East, and Africa in Coursera. In his role, he advises companies, governments, and universities on the skills they need for the future and helps them to design digital learning programs to develop their people. Before working at Coursera, Adam was management consultant at Morehouse, and he also designed the firm's first consulting academy. So just a few technical details. We'll give 40 minutes to our two presenters, then we'll have a question and answer session. Please write your question in the Q&A box and we will collect them at the end and pose your questions to our panelists. So the floor is yours, Kerry and Adam.
Thank you very much. So I'd just like to say thanks to Dr. Aydin for the introduction and for all of those really poignant questions that he raised. I hope that Adam and I will be able to address some of those questions throughout the session and of course at the end if we have time. Also, thanks to the EURIE team. It's really an honor for Adam and I to be here, and thank you to everybody who has taken time out to come and join the session today. I know it's an incredibly busy time for you all and that you're facing lots of challenges with the start back of the academic year and still in a time of uncertainty. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you'll find it productive, and I'm looking forward to getting started. So I'm going to share my screen with you all now. Here we go. So hopefully, can you see the screen? Just give me a thumbs up. Yes. Okay.
Yes, Kerry, we can.
Great, fantastic. Okay, so welcome. Here we go. So, I mean, I think we have to start with talking a little bit about the COVID situation because we're all living through that. We were living through that at the end of the last academic year, and it looks like that's something we're going to be grappling with for this new academic year. So just a few facts and figures about what's happening with COVID. So actually what happened is 1.6 billion students, which is a phenomenal amount of students, were affected in the first half of this year because of school closures. So that's globally. Also at Coursera, of course, we're providing online education from some of the world's greatest universities. As a business, we also saw that the volumes of learners that were coming to Coursera to try to continue their education as their schools were closing, we had an increase of 644% in the numbers of learners coming to carry on their education. And actually also, I've been dealing with universities across Europe, Middle East and Africa, and we've seen governments actually quickly, some of them, responding to the need for changes to the regulation on the use of online learning for credit. And I know in Turkey, the YÖK has actually upgraded the volume of online learning for credit that can be offered to 40%. I think they recommend a minimum of 10%, or they strongly encourage 10% to be formal education program to be done online, and they're recommending up to 40%. So I think Turkey as a country has actually made very quick and progressive moves in the sense of recognizing that formal online education. Not all countries have been able to move that quickly and are still struggling with how they're going to recognize the learning, the formal learning that will take place online. Of course, also in Turkey, the government has established the UZEMs. I think that's 20 of them around different states within Turkey, which I think are designed to help universities to get up and running, prepare your trainers, help ready your students to be learning at a distance, which is, it's new for everyone. We're used to the on-campus experience, and it was a very abrupt and radical change. So there's a lot of learning for us all to do on how to make that a really good experience. So sort of COVID, of course, it's going to have a massive economic impact. It's going to impact on jobs, on the availability of jobs. We're going to see rising unemployment, I imagine, in almost every country across the world due to the changes that we're seeing with how we need to respond to the pandemic. But prior to COVID, we were already seeing a big shift actually in the skill sets that students and people in work are needing. So we were expecting that 42% of jobs were expecting to have an entirely different skill set by 2022. And of course, this is brought about by the fourth industrial revolution, the advances in technology, in automation, in machine learning, and those types of things are going to be impacting many, many types of work. We do a lot of work with employers, and actually these statistics come from a World Economic Forum Jobs of the Future report, and they've done lots of surveys with different employers, as of Coursera, and less than 50% of employers globally actually think that their university graduates are prepared to join the workforce. Now, of course, maybe that is a little bit harsh. We go to university, we focus on a specific discipline to become a master of that discipline. But I think what employers are also looking for are some of those cross multidisciplinary skills. So you can be a very amazing technical mechanical engineer, but what you really need is communication skills to be able to share that knowledge or apply that knowledge in a workplace. So I think there's some elements that employers would like to see more of, according to this report, and also some multidisciplinary skills, soft skills, entrepreneurship, those types of things that can be coupled with a strong understanding of a discipline you've learned. And 9% of executives say that their own leadership teams have the right digital skills. So I guess nowadays, for companies to be able to compete globally, everybody within the company needs to be having a digital mindset, to be able to think creatively, to be able to compete, and to be able to help their own company transform digitally. And this is a really big challenge that Adam will talk a bit more about this later. So if we just go back to Turkey, focus a little bit more on Turkey itself. This is a report from Manpower, the employment agency, from 2018. It interviewed 39,000 employers across 6 industries in 43 countries. And here you can see that 66% of employers in Turkey across those 6 different industries are having difficulty filling jobs. So that's because the skills that they're needing, data scientists, for example, they're simply not able to fulfill that requirement of those roles. So there are people coming from university in those disciplines, but there are not enough people with the skills that are required. That's a really high percentage in skills shortage. And that's across all different industries, so not just skilled traders and construction, but engineering, accounting and finance, sales and marketing. You can see here it's touching every or many different industries. And then finally, this is looking at a McKinsey report, The Future of Work, and this is focusing in on Turkey specifically. Jobs are, new jobs are coming, the economy is growing in Turkey. There will be 3.1 million new jobs happening. You can see here, there's going to be some loss of jobs due to the automation that we mentioned earlier. There will be new jobs to be had, but actually 1.8 million of those jobs that will be available in 2030 will be brand new jobs that currently don't exist, that will be encompassing new technologies. That's a staggering amount. And I guess our job as working in higher education is to help nurture our students to be able to take on those jobs of the future and move into those really specialized areas to be help to lead the way and help keep the Turkish economy buoyant. So here you can see, if we break down from that report, we're looking at which skills that we really need to focus on. Where can we help our students gain skills that are going to help them fill those new roles that we don't yet know about? It's the technology skills, and that doesn't mean you all have to become, or students have to become, data scientists and computer scientists, but basic knowledge of those types of things are going to be really important for all students, regardless of their discipline. And of course, we already mentioned those social skills. Human skills are going to continue to be really high up there. Communication skills, critical thinking skills, they're super important. Adaptability, resilience, those type of things. We're going to need to help our students gain that knowledge. So as I said before, it's not just for specific industries related to engineering. For example, you can see every industry, or all the ones listed here that you might not think would be needing technical skills, but they are here. You can see this is highlighted by the dark colour, that there's going to be a massive increase in all of these sectors, according to the McKinsey Future of Work report that came out in January this year. So Coursera, how are we helping to support universities in Turkey to address those challenges, to equip students with those skills, to help them compete in what is just going to become a much more challenging environment to gain employment and to compete with others? So as many of you will be aware, in January, when the pandemic really hit hard, Coursera and the partners that produce the content that is on Coursera decided that we needed to do something to respond quickly to this pandemic that was closing universities across the world. And we decided that we would give away for free the Coursera for Campus program in our Coursera for Campus Response Initiative. So we launched the program in March, on March 12th, and we have given free access for any university in the world to access 3,800 courses and 400 specializations. Initially, we gave away 5,000 licenses to each and everybody who applied, but actually we did increase that number because we saw such a massive uptake and such a high demand just to be able to respond quickly and help universities take steps that just were unimaginable before the COVID crisis to help students continue their learning, and especially those final year students that were going in to that exam period and were going to be finishing university, who really needed extra support to get their qualifications and get off to a good start. So that's been running. That initiative now will be ending at the end of September, so the end of this month, next week. Any students that are enrolled on that program or any courses within the program before the 30th of September will be given 8 weeks to complete anything that they've started. So there's still time to promote that to students within and to get them enrolled on courses and finish off anything that they need to complete. I'll just tell you a little bit about how many learners we've been able to support with this initiative. So we've launched over 10,000 programs, 10,000 instances of Coursera for Coronavirus for different universities or faculties across the world. We've had 1.7 million students enroll through this response initiative, which is staggering. Those students, those 1.7 million, have enrolled on 12 million courses on Coursera. And together, collectively, they have spent 32 million hours learning. So I think that is just phenomenal to see how quickly students have responded and needed to complete their studies or carry on learning. And I think what's really interesting, you can see here, that the primary domains that students were most interested in, which I think reinforces what we're seeing in terms of the skills gaps and the way, the gaps within Turkey and what employers are looking for, computer science, business, and data science, by far have been what those students, those 1.7 million, have chosen to spend their time learning. So regardless whether they're studying English literature or arts and humanities, we're seeing many students were trying to get basic knowledge of machine learning or Python, for example. And you can see here the actual courses they were taking. Programming for everyone. This is getting started with Python, which is a programming language. That was the course that everybody took. So that's a very beginner's level, the basics of Python, which most students or many students will need when they get into the world of work, Python data structures, writing emails in English, Excel for Business. So you can see here some of the most popular courses that students were engaged with. And just in Europe, if we focus in a little bit, I've listed here the top 10 countries. So you can see here Turkey, we launched to 45 different universities across Turkey, actually took up the initiative, and we're very heavy users of that content. So we do have some insights into the types of things that learners in Turkey were looking at.
Kerry, can I just ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
We have 10,000 plus programs set up. What are people most excited about when they start this coronavirus campus initiative?
That's a really good question, Adam. So when we launched it, I think what people were most excited about, so let's say an administrator at a university or a vice chancellor took up the opportunity for Coursera for coronavirus. I think they were excited at the speed with which we could just get them up and running. We could whitelist the site, so basically set up a link that then they could just email out to their entire learner base, so their students, their alumni, their staff, their faculty members. With this link, everybody could just instantly get started learning. And I think some universities, they decided just to give students free rein to choose from that catalogue of 3,800 things, to decide what it was they wanted to learn and what they needed to learn to support them. So that was, I think, interesting for many to see what types of courses their students were actually selecting. And as we saw, those Python courses, it was quite a surprise, I think, for many to see their students so keen to learn some of the basics of coding, different coding languages. And then we saw other universities that wanted to be more selective. They wanted to actually pair their existing curriculum with content that would support those learning outcomes. And that took a little bit more time to curate that content, but we did actually see many universities move to a blended model using Coursera and actually awarding credit for the completion of those courses. So I think that's what was exciting. I mean, we saw many different scenarios of different modes of employment, but I think it was the speed and ease with which they could get going, and actually the self-autonomy that they saw their learners had in deciding what to learn and how to dedicate themselves to it. I think that actually just proved that our students are more autonomous than we think, actually.
Nice, thank you. I'll let you carry on.
Thank you. So what we know about learners and employers' needs. So at Coursera, I just want to say a few words in case you aren't familiar with us as a company, but actually on the Coursera platform, beyond just the Coursera for Coronavirus initiative, we actually have 70 million learners across the world. So they would be people in universities, individuals, self-serving for content, but also corporate clients that work with us for learning and development. So that gives us a huge amount of data of what people want to learn and are searching to learn. We work with around 200 universities and industry partners in producing our content. Some of the world's best universities, the Michigans, Yale, Stanford, Imperial College London, that have produced content, or Google, when we're looking at Google Cloud Computing, is sometimes the industry partners that bring the knowledge for that course. And then institutions across the world. So we work Coursera for Business with corporate clients. We work with many governments with our Coursera for Government team, and also the Coursera for Campus initiative, which is the one we have been speaking about. So that's working with higher education institutions. So that gives us a triangle here, and what that gives us is just immense amounts of data to be able to help understand what skills are trending, what is needed from the different types of institutions. So that's our ecosystem at Coursera. So in Turkey, if we dig down a little bit, so across Turkey, well, across Europe, 13 million learners. In Turkey, we have over 500,000 people registered on the Coursera site who are learning with us, and they're enrolled in over 1.5 million courses on our site. So we've got quite a good insight into what's happening in Turkey in terms of skills development and skills gaps. Again, the domains, it pretty much mirrors what we've seen from the Coursera for Coronavirus initiative. Computer science, business, and data science. They are the top areas, domains that we're seeing learners in Turkey are choosing to help them progress in their jobs, fill gaps in their knowledge, and and learn new things. And the top courses, again, on the technical side, but machine learning. So, you know, that could also be related, Python, machine learning, but as well, career development, English for career development, and things for resilience. So personal well-being, the science of well-being is there too. So that we can share this after, so you can see this. And some of the organisations we work with, you'll recognise lots of these big brands. They have approached Coursera because they've got skills gaps and they want us to help them fill these skills gaps. They want to use the Coursera content to build out programmes to retrain and upskill their employees to help their businesses with digital transformation. Of course, you'll recognise many of these, and many of your students will go on to work in these companies. And finally, before I hand over to Adam, yesterday we announced actually our Coursera for Government team have partnered with the Mayor of Istanbul, and we are working together on a new initiative that's Coursera for Workforce Recovery. So your mayor in Istanbul will be offering access to a section of Coursera courses to help unemployed people within the Istanbul area to be able to take courses and to reskill and upskill and hopefully help them get into employment. So that was announced yesterday, and we're really excited to be partnering with the Mayor of Istanbul on this project. So I'm going to hand over to Adam now, but before Adam dives in to talk about the state of skills in Turkey and digs into some of that data that we have, I wanted to ask you, Adam, if you could just tell me a little bit about your own personal development journeys and what types of skills you are trying to develop.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I share my screen while I answer that question?
Yes, of course.
And then I can take over. So I think the great thing about Coursera, if I can present, is there is such a wide array of different courses that you could take.
Alan, sorry to interrupt. We are seeing your Slack.
Ah, yeah, that doesn't work. But how do I share this then? Is that better?
That's better. Yes.
Excellent, good. You got the inner workings of my life. So there are a lot of different courses that you can take. There's a couple that I find very useful and I think would be very useful for people here. One is about designing the future of work, which is run by someone called Heather McGowan, who is a real leader in the world of future of work. So the type of skills, what the type of the labor market in the future will look like. So we can share all of these as well. But I think also a lot of what people like are things like AI for Everyone, which is by Andrew Ng, who is actually one of the founders of Coursera. And he just really clearly states, like, this is what artificial intelligence means. This is what it means for the world. These are the things you need to think about. These are the ethics that you need to think about. And it's just a wonderful overview of the type of things that always get talked about, but no one necessarily knows exactly what they mean. So there's another one called Digital Transformation by Boston Consulting Group, which does the same. It says, when I talk to you about cloud computing and artificial intelligence and virtual reality, what do I actually mean and how are they going to impact the world? So we'll talk about some of the skills in this section in a minute. But those are the courses, the types of courses that I really love to just give you a good overview, and then you can start diving into the things that matter most to you.
Great, thanks, Adam.
No problem. The other great resource that we have that we're going to talk to you is this. It's our Global Skills Index report. It comes out every year, and what we do is, the beauty of having 70 million learners across the globe is we can start to understand what skills people are investing in, so that when we come to talk to you and you're looking in your universities at the type of skills that maybe you're not developing people in, or maybe where you want to augment what you're doing today, we can give you some insights in there. So I'm going to go through some very high level pieces of information about this, and then we'd encourage you to go and actually look at the report. But what it does is it says, for these three domains of business, technology, and data, where is everyone ranking in terms of skill development across each of the different regions and within different industries? And what we can do with that is we can say, okay, let's look at all of the different enrollments that people have across data, business, and computer science, because they are the most important ones that we have. And then let's understand what the essential skills are for the fourth industrial revolution. So it may be that these skills are not necessarily in your curriculum right now, or if they are, they're in a very narrow way, but it's possible that with the vision of what's coming in the future, we can start to identify areas that we haven't yet covered. So this is all pulling from the data that we have, and also what people are learning and what we're seeing in the market. And you can see in these three areas, on the data side, everyone that we talk to asks us about how they can increase their skills in data science, because there is so much data out there that's being generated by all our technology. And then they ask about how they can work into artificial intelligence. So if we think about Turkey and some of the key industries in Turkey, you've got certainly the service industry that's going to need artificial intelligence to support the finance and insurance functions, but even things like agriculture, which makes up a lot of the Turkish market. There are so many things you can do with machine learning and artificial intelligence to support a lot of your agricultural work. And these are the types of skills that people want to develop. Cloud computing has doubled in the number of enrollments that people have taken over the last year, which is phenomenal. So we see a lot of activity there. I would imagine that starts flying even higher. And then for someone like, again, a country like Turkey, we're seeing a lot of things around app and web development, because you have quite a large informal sector, quite a lot of entrepreneurship. So this gives people the ability to learn about web design, to learn about kind of the basics of how you develop mobile apps, so people and small businesses can start to really grow. And then, of course, you've got a lot of emerging technologies that come out of there, from digital manufacturing all the way through to blockchain. And Kerry also mentioned all of these business and human skills. The human skills pretty much underlie every single thing that we do. People will say, and we want these human skills, because as artificial intelligence comes in, as more people do things digitally, we're actually moving into an augmentation age where our human creativity is going to align with some of the digital interaction that we have. So we use things like this and structures like this to help universities just to think through the types of skills they're looking to develop. And then we can start doing a bit of a ranking. So we can say, okay, North America potentially is the best in business, and Europe is doing very well in technology and data science. And then some areas within Latin America, Middle East and Africa have some work to do. But each time we see an analysis like this, we can then double click and start to look at what's happening from a country perspective. So we split the world into 4 different areas, and we look at 60 countries within our skills index, just because that's where we've got the most data at the moment. And you can see there are cutting edge countries, competitive countries, then emerging, and then lagging. And this is to do with the percentiles. So Switzerland may be top, and then Mexico will be bottom. And you can see in business, Turkey is currently 38th out of the 60 countries. But interestingly, in the last year, it's gone up 18 places. So we're seeing a lot within Turkey, and certainly in the areas around Turkey. There's a lot of investment in business, which is why it's doing really well. But it shows you that there's an enormous amount of growth, so you can continue to rise up the rankings. In technology, a little bit of a dissimilar story. So lagging behind in technology in 54th, so it's the 10th percentile out of our groups, and that's gone down 1 in 1 year. And then in data, also hanging around that area. So you can see a very clear pattern that business is doing very well from a proficiency perspective in Turkey, but there's a lot to do in the digital space that can be done over the next few years. And then what you could do is double click one more time. We're not going to double click any further, but just to have a look at what that means from a competency perspective. So we can say within technology, business, and data, here we have 6 competencies under each of them that we think are absolutely critical. And you can start to see how Turkey is doing in each of these areas. So in operating systems, it's doing better than in some of the other areas. Again, we see a lot of areas where there are informal or high retail industries proliferating that do very well in marketing and in finance. So that's understandable. And then data visualization is one of the, let's say, the most basic of the data skills that we have. It's the most accessible in businesses at the moment. So we have a lot of people who are working in data visualization, but there's a lot of scope to start moving in a lot of these areas into much more technical basis and also on a data basis. And the reason why this is really important, it's the same report that Kerry was looking at from the McKinsey Turkey Institute here, is there's a relatively high automation risk to a number of jobs in Turkey. And what's expected is that the labor market is going to move from a lot of these, let's say, administrative or repetitive tasks in a lot of jobs into much more sort of service-oriented, much more digital and much more creative spaces. So what we tend to look at when we talk to universities is, what are the jobs that you're expecting your students to go into? What does the labor market look like? Where is it heading? Where are you currently at from a proficiency perspective in your skill development? And then how do we make sure that your curricula is guiding people in the right way? So just to give you one example of how this has worked really well is we have, for example, a Google IT support certificate. It's a professional certificate on our platform, and it's very popular for people at university to understand how IT works because it covers operating systems, security engineering, software engineering, and it also gives you a certificate that says, actually, we're ready for the labor market. So people will say, oh, you understand IT from the Google perspective. That's really great. We are interested then in hiring you. So the opportunities then for your students to come along and find new skills is increased. So that kind of touches on what we then do is once we've actually looked at the skills and we work with you to identify the skills that are important to you, we then have our Coursera for Campus platform, which will help you to get to where you need to get to. So we have these 3,800 online courses from the top universities and industries. So it's very job related. We also have private authoring. So we allow faculty to create their own projects and assessments and courses. So we can understand what skills you're potentially missing. We can give you a platform to create this online content, or you can take the content that we've already got. And then we have something called guided projects where you can actually master your skills with hands-on learning, where you have a web-based browser where half of the browser is a recording of an instructor doing a project. So it might be programming something in Python. And then the learner has a web browser on their side where they can do the exact same thing. So you actually get to do projects, which is becoming really, really popular. We have these job-ready skill maps available as well, where we can say these are the technical skills that we think are important to increase the chances of people landing jobs. And then we have an entire administration platform where you can then track the skills that your students are actually developing so that when we come along, we can have really interesting conversations about where we might want to put new content and increase the quality of your university infrastructure. So this is what our private courses may start looking like once you've authored. And this is the guided projects, just so people are aware. You have visual instructions from instructor here, and then you have learners are able to create the same sort of projects on the left-hand side here. So I'm sure we have a number of questions, and I want to give time for those questions. If anyone has them, I will happily take them.
Thank you. Thank you to our two presenters. You're right on time. There are a couple of questions. One is coming from our friend Betül Bulut Şahin from Middle Eastern Technical University. She's thanking you for your presentation. But she says that especially like the older generation academic staff are against sort of MOOCs in general, and they think of it as an alternative to university education and then tend to reject it on that regard. But Betül asks if you can really differentiate between a course taught online or face-to-face in a university, by the university, and then a Coursera course. And she thinks that the two can be, not alternatives to each other, but really complement each other. So maybe you can, give us a little bit more detail on how you can sort of pair, a university course taught by an academic staff, full-time academic staff by the university, and then a Coursera module.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's a really great question, actually. And of course, often we will see in the beginning, that professors can feel a little bit threatened by the idea that suddenly they will become redundant because all the learning's gone online and, oh, what's my role here? But I think absolutely this will not replace the human part and the need for human interaction and that side of things. And I think really what Coursera's content, the courses there can do is add a richness. And I see there are three kind of different ways that I've seen universities use this material. And as a first step, as a how to get started, a very first basic step, what you can do is you already have your curriculum, which has been approved and been through your governance process and is what you've committed to teaching. And of course, with COVID in the mix, and I know we're going to see this, many Turkish universities will not be coming back to campus for the next semester. That's been decided. So we are going to have another semester of being at home. And that can be quite a lonely and isolated experience. So I think where Coursera can add value immediately is if we work with the university to find content on the Coursera platform that will deliver the same learning outcomes that you are teaching. So of course you can record your lectures and students can watch them, but it's not a very interactive experience. And I think it can be quite solitary and quite honestly, it can be a little bit boring just to watch lecture after lecture while you sat at home on your own with no interaction. So what the Coursera content will do is it can scaffold the learning experience from home when you're asynchronous, when you're not connected to other humans, so that you can there's tests and quizzes throughout. You maybe watch short snippets of videos, you test your learning, you do you kind of do a quiz, maybe you do a small assignment, and that experience as an asynchronous learner is really rich. And then the times when your lecturer is available, so maybe once a week you connected with your lecturer and your fellow classmates, that hour that you're connected together can be so much more interactive. It can really let the professor do what professors are best at doing, to check understanding, to discuss areas of difficulty where students have questions. They were learning something online at home earlier in the week and they've got big questions about it and they need support and help. And I think actually for a professor, this experience can actually potentially be more enriching for your teaching and the part of teaching that actually is the most rewarding, where you can impart your knowledge and guide that student to where they need to get. So I see that can be a very valuable, especially now where we need to make the interactive experience really rich. That can be a really good first step and just support how you achieve those outcomes. Now, many universities, and Adam's talked about the skills gaps in Turkey, around data science and those types of areas. Now, it may be that you don't have the professors within your university to teach every student coding in Python, That's what students want to learn, and we've seen that data. But you can't possibly deliver coding in Python to everybody because you don't have the professors. But that's what students know they need for when they start applying for jobs. So it's possible that you can look at the trending framework, so we can provide that data to you, and you can provide content online to your students at scale, so every student can do the basics of AI and the introduction to Python. You don't need more lecturers because actually many of these people are working in industry and they're not working in universities. And there aren't enough of these people to go around, quite honestly, but we know we need to equip students. So to add as a kind of elective modules or secondary subjects, you can do that without having to build more classrooms, get more lecturers and find people in very specialist areas. So that's another way it can bolster what you do. And then, of course, the multidisciplinary skills. You know, you try to teach them through your curriculum and, you know, we try to build them into our teaching. But we know students are often quite, in engineering students, very technically focused, want to learn the technicalities. How are you going to help them with building some of those softer skills that they need to have? So it might be that you have a not-for-credit a series of courses that they can do. It could be mandatory, and that can help them then build up those softer skills that you're not teaching, that they're not learning through their core curriculum, but it's there to help them and to help improve their employability skills. So there are kind of many different ways, and it really doesn't have to be threatening. It can just be so much more enriching if you embrace it and understand how it can help fill those gaps and how it can help you do your job and empower you actually to be more satisfied with the interaction you get with your students.
Kerry, a follow-up question on that, sort of a more operational question. How does a Turkish university approach you and sort of partner with you? Like, do you do one-on-one advising and guidance, maybe sit down with the learning center if they have one, or the online education center, or maybe with a specific faculty even, like with the engineering faculty? Like, do you do one-on-one advising? Do you do visits? How do you provide those services to them?
Yeah, it's a really great question. So absolutely. I mean, of course, it takes time to decide how this is going to roll out, how it's going to be implemented, what the blend will be, you know, how will it be for electives, will it be built in? So there's a huge amount of consultancy that needs to go, or that we work with university partners on. And of course, usually this can be an investment from a faculty specifically, and of course engineering faculties are a great example. We work with many. Or if you're looking to do this more broadly across the whole university, of course we'll need to be speaking with the Vice Chancellor, as well as with the deans of faculties and actually the staff that are going to work with this content. So, you know, it's going to need to encompass staff, faculty and leadership, so that we can build up what it is we're trying to achieve. And we will work with Adam and his team, what can help on the selecting the skills side of things. We have an implementation team that would help with the curation of building of your site. For integration with your existing LMS, single sign-on, we can deal with all of that through our implementation team. And we'll also have a dedicated customer success team who will sit down with you in the very beginning, before we launch, well before we launch, and we'll decide, what does success look like? What are we trying to achieve, and how are we going to measure that, and how are we going to make that happen? So we'll all be very clear on what everybody's working towards, and then over the life of the partnership, we'll review regularly how it's going, what's engagement like, which skills are being mastered, many metrics that we can work on showing progress. So it really is partnership in all senses of the word, and it will take some time to get us up and running. And once faculty are confident, everybody's been trained, we started marketing that to students and explaining how that's going to be incorporated, and then we can get up and running. So that's Adam, would you like to add something?
Yeah, just one thing. I think we have quite a lot of very good tools for understanding skills, and then the type of content we have that we share with faculty when we work with them. And they just tend to get very excited because they're like, okay, well, this is my faculty. These are the things I've been talking about. I'm very interested to know how other people learn. So even that in itself gets people very excited to have the resources. And then we come on top to give our consultancy positions just to help along the way. So it's hopefully a good fun as well as extremely useful.
Thank you. Now, another question is like, how do you choose the teachers or the universities that you work with that provide the course content? And my personal question is that most popular course, the coding course, like which university is providing that course content? I'm curious to know. And are there any Turkish universities also on the Coursera platform teaching courses?
That's a good question. I can talk to the content at the beginning.
Turkish question.
That #1 course is from the University of Michigan, which is a very highly rated US university. So we have a university partnership team and an industry partner team, and it's their job to go around to the best universities in the world and talk to them about what they specialize in, what they're interested in producing. We have a very high quality threshold, which we uphold, which says we don't actually want hundreds and hundreds of universities on our platform. We want every single person who goes on our platform to know that they're getting the best teaching from the best schools. Similarly, from the industry perspective, we work with Google, we work with IBM, Facebook, we work with the big groups that we know are not only able to produce high quality content, but are also the people who are creating the technology upon which people are learning. So it's very helpful to talk to Google about their Google Cloud platform if you want to know about cloud computing. So that's how we do it. And we also have a teaching and learning team that works very closely with those universities to make sure that their standards are upheld, but also our standards for online content are upheld as well. So it's very collaborative, but it's certainly the best universities in the world at the minute. And Kerry, if you want to.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. And just to answer your question about if we have any Turkish content producing partners, we are currently working with Koç University. They have produced a number of courses around in the area of mathematics and also effective speaking courses, some courses on nursing. So you'll be able to see, if you go to the Coursera platform, the courses that Koç have provided for us. We're also working actually with a number of, Adam mentioned the hands-on guided projects. So these are short projects as opposed to the big courses that maybe you're more familiar with. So these short projects that are really actually giving students practical application of things that they've learned. And through, for guided projects, we're actually working directly with subject matter experts. So some universities will have produced those projects, but we're currently open to working directly with subject matter experts. And actually those people are coming from all different corners of the world. So it's a new project that we've started this year. We've got around 350 guided projects at the moment, and we're going to be having 1,000 guided projects by the end of this year. So I can share information if anybody is interested in becoming a subject matter or is a subject matter expert. Specifically, there are some areas that we're looking for related to data science, computer science, business, but that's a way to get involved. And of course, if you become a Coursera for Campus partner, you would have access to our authoring tools, all of our templates, our tests, quizzes, and assessments, which is a great way to get started to trial and test what it's actually like. We also have an online course that you can take, 3-hour course on how to author, our pedagogy, our best practices, that type of thing. So we can give you some guidance as you're starting to build up your own expertise among faculty and staff members to deliver your own online courses through the Coursera platform.
Thank you. There's a question. How accessible is Coursera for visually impaired? Cemre Erciyes from İstanbul Aydın University. She's a social work professor that I know. So that's a very good, interesting question that, that didn't occur to me. So very interesting. What would you say to that? For the visually impaired, but we can also add, you know, like hearing impaired, maybe other disabilities as well?
So we do have within our content a number of accessibility pieces. So we do have subtitles to our courses. If you are visually impaired, we have, so all of the courses can be done audio based as well. So you can download them to your phone if you wanted to. You can actually, we have a new one where you can download it to your car. So all of the courses that you have, you'll be able to listen to, you'll be able to do. We'd need to check about kind of the programming assignments, but I think for the most part, the videos and the audio will be available for each of the courses.
Another question is, how do you assure the quality of your courses? Is there any external evaluator or accreditor? This is from Professor Olgun Çiçek from the Council of Higher Education in Northern Cyprus.
Go on, Kerry.
Okay, great, thank you. It's a good question, and of course, as Adam mentioned, when we select our content producing partners, they are representative of the top universities across the world, and each of those universities have their own governance system and their own. They're obviously producing content to a very high level, which will go through their own approval system. So if you're getting a course that is produced by Michigan University, that will have been through their own process to assure the quality of that before it is published onto the Coursera platform carrying the Michigan logo. Now, what we see, of course, those courses aren't awarding credit per se, so they are courses that university students can take. So let's say you're at a Turkish university, the university may decide they have reviewed that content, they've reviewed the assessment within it, and they've decided at this Turkish university, this course would count for 5 ECTS credits, for example, but that would be up to your own governance system to decide if the level, the quality, the learning hours, the outcomes were suitable for that award to be granted.
And every course as well that we have is rated by the students. So once you complete a course, you rate it. And it's quite funny, I talked to our teaching and learning researchers and scientists, and they say they've spent the last few years trying to work out what a good course looks like. And they say the rating is just the best way of doing it. Because when you have 3 million people taking a course by Yale on the science of well-being, if 3 million people say it's a 4.8 rating out of 5, that's a very good course. So all of those will give you the indication of what courses are great. And that's also what we use with a number of other data points to recommend courses to you.
Now, I think that's maybe a question from the perspective of a university administrator. In terms of credit recognition, maybe the outside accreditation, is important for easing or facilitating that credit recognition by the university, let's say Senate or other sort of relevant bodies, which tend to be, universities, you work with them in partnership. So very bureaucratic and, highly sort of rigid rules and procedures for credit recognition. So I think, the quality in that sense is to, not, satisfaction of the students per se, but quality in terms of credit recognition, sort of. That's why the external, I think, accreditation comes in handy. I'm looking at another question here. How are you able to integrate your course contents with the learning outcomes? So is there like a matrix that you use? This is from Professor Zafer Aslan from Istanbul Aydın University. So matching the content with the learning outcomes.
And that's the question of the learning outcome that you would like to deliver, is that right? Right. Okay. So it tends to be that there's a couple of ways to understand which course is the right thing. So every course or every project that we have will have its own learning outcome associated with it. So every person who looks at a course will be able to see what's the learning objective, what's the structure of the course, what's in there. So when we have the conversations about which courses or projects you want to use, we will work with you to just understand what you're trying to achieve more broadly, and then we'll give you the list of courses and projects that are directly relatable to what you're trying to get to. So it's really the faculty that we're trying to help to curate content so that they can say, okay, of these 10 courses, I'm going to start looking through the learning objectives and see which are relevant to me. That's probably one way. The other way we do things in terms of curation is we have an algorithm called Course Match, where you share your courses that you have in your curriculum, and we have an algorithm that works out which courses might be associated to that course that you already have. And the more description that you can give us, so the more about your learning outcomes that you provide, the more that the algorithm can then work out which course is similar to you. So it's very early days for our course match, but it's a nice starter so that you can understand which courses are relevant, and then we can give you some sort of curation separately where you can then decide the course that's absolutely right.
Okay, that's very interesting. And that algorithm is a new thing, right? And when did you start using that? And you know, the more it's used, I'm guessing it's going to get better and more precise.
So it is. I guess the difference is a lot of different universities have a number of courses. So what we try and do is try and make it easier for the faculty to work. So if you have 10,000 curricula, then you're going to get a lot of courses back, which may not be the best way of doing it. So we work with you to understand which is the best way. But the algorithm is a really nice starting point. If you just want to very quickly understand the Coursera content, then you can get it kind of once you've talked to us a little bit more about what your learning needs are.
Okay, very good. Now, there's a question which sort of ties into a more sort of general question I have also. One of our participants is looking for arts courses on Coursera, but especially regarding theater or acting, she finds very few. And so my sort of also general question is, you know, in terms of these, you know, more sort of digital skills that you mentioned, and then the sort of the more transversal soft skills that you mentioned, and of course Coursera offers courses for all these different things and different subject fields and the digital and the soft skills part. But do you find, or do you have any data that supports that the online learning sort of platform or the pedagogy is more useful in one or the other? So for example, do you find that the online methodology or delivery works better for digital sort of content versus the humanities or soft skills or arts? You know, do you have any sense of that, or do you measure that?
I'm happy to take that. There's two parts to that question. The first part is, you know, is there enough arts content? I think one of the things that we're working on at the moment is we have a content strategy team that whenever we get feedback that someone says, these are the types of things we want, we pull it into our content strategy team, and they, with all of their kind of market analysis and skills analysis, will decide what content we want to procure for the future. Mm-hmm. So it may not be in there now, but it may be something that we do in the future. And we really want to have that dialogue, because the more people we talk to, the better appreciation we get of that. So that's the first thing. In terms of how the, you know, soft skills versus digital skills, we have assessments across every single course and project that we have. And that's a core pedagogical principle of Coursera. So we can understand that people really do learn these skills. And in a lot of the soft skill areas, you can still do very good assessments from scenario-based learning through to, you know, we have a University of Washington does a course on public speaking, and you're encouraged to upload a video, and then you get peers to review that video based on a set rubric or criteria. So actually there's a lot you can do in the human space that still works really well. And I'll just give you one other example. There's a Foundation of Leadership course where they'll give you a scenario and they'll ask you to email 3 of your colleagues. and they'll give a scenario to each of the colleagues and encourage you to collaborate. And then you need to do a write-up based on the fact that you've worked together in a collaborative environment. So there are actually many ways we can do it. So we think there are, it's just as good in the humanities space as it is in digital. But of course we think that. But yeah, it's really for people to test. And obviously the more feedback we get, the more we can do to keep going and improve our product.
Very good. Another question is, can you compare yourself to other sort of online course providers like Udemy or others, you know, EDX? You know, what makes sort of Coursera unique, or some of the products that you, or services that you offer, what makes Coursera unique and different than the others?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that question. So I would say, you know, one of the main things that Coursera can bring to universities in Turkey or any universities is that the content has generally been produced by other universities. So people who understand learning and teaching have produced that content. It has been through their governance system, and it does teach at the level that you would need it to teach to really truly be able to integrate it into your curriculum. So you know that the quality of that content is high, and you don't have to spend hours sifting through, checking to see if it's good enough to use with your students. You know, everything on there has come from a good quality university. So that's the first thing. I think the quality assurance is super important. To maintain your own brand and reputation, you need to know that what you're giving to your students is up there. So I'd say that's the first thing. Of course, when we work with partners, I mentioned all of the support that we give to you. It really is, in terms of, it is a partnership. You know, we don't just give you the content, off you go and use this content and see how it goes. We're really involved, and we work together sort of hand in hand through that process to launch, but also through the life cycle, and regular reviews to check that everything is working well. And I think the other nice thing is the course building tools. So they are included free of charge when you enter into partnership with Coursera, because actually that's what's going to empower your faculty, if they're ready, to start producing their own content, to playing around, maybe bringing in localized case studies, things like that, that you can then use with your student populations. So, you know, I think you'll find that most of the platforms wouldn't be able to offer you that type of upskilling for your own staff in terms of building out the content as well. But I'd say the main thing is the quality of the content that's already there is really strong. And also, I think our size, our 70 million learners, this is a huge number of learners on our platform, and the power that we have in the knowledge from the data we can collect from those learners and from around the world really helps us to understand skills, job relevant skills and trending. And we're very sharing with that data to help our university partners build those future trends into their curriculum or support their students to grow that. So I think there's so many angles that Coursera can bring due to our broad reach globally, but also some of the tools that we can share with you. And of course, that quality aspect, that you don't have time to search through catalogues of thousands of courses. You need to know that that content is good and it's coming from
Kerry, you showed the World Economic Forum's future of jobs. They're actually using our skills data for a lot of that analysis. So when you see those World Economic Forum reports, that's the skills data that Kerry's mentioning. So
right.
It's good.
There are a couple of more specific questions, but I think your staff is looking at the questions already, and maybe can get in touch with those people later on to answer those questions. And I also see that Natalia from Coursera has shared links to the reports mentioned here. So our participants can go back after the webinar and take a look at those written reports. And Ms. Pınar Elbasan has mentioned also in the chat box that we will share the recordings or the presentations to those who attended afterwards, if it's okay. So there's a lot to sort of think about now, and there's a lot to do follow-up after the webinar. I just want to, before we close, we are running out of time, but I want to give the last word to Kerry and Adam and ask you a specific question. Like, if you were a Turkish university now, and there's a deadline you mentioned coming up for registering for free some of these, courses until September 30, what would you do? Who would you call?
Well, I'm happy to talk to any Turkish universities that are interested to engage with Coursera to explore the possibilities of working together. If you're already using Coursera for coronavirus response initiative, I would say make the most of that and send out that link to your students and tell them to enroll on any courses they're interested in before the 30th, so that they can just carry on learning for a little bit of additional time. But of course, we're really happy to discuss longer term relationships of how we can support you. So my email address is here on the screen, khouchen@coursera.org, and I am specifically actually dedicated to working with universities in Turkey. So I would be pleased to start conversations with anybody that would like to explore a little bit more.
And I would talk to Kerry as well, because she knows.
You're saying, don't call me, call Kerry.
Yeah.
So Kerry tends to call me quite a lot, so I could
bring Adam in.
skills all day, and would very happily do that when required.
All right. And Natalia, again, from Coursera, is mentioning in the chat box that you have an anniversary event coming up. So again, I invite all our participants to look into that. Well, thank you very much, then, to all our panelists. I'll give the floor back to Pınar, and if we can stop sharing the slides, and we'll go back to Pınar to say goodbye, and thank you to all our participants and, of course, our panelists.
Thank you very much, Aysa. Our pleasure.
Thank you.
It has been also our pleasure to host Coursera experts, Adam and Kerry. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for partnering this event. I'm sure it has been a very productive training for all Turkish university participants, and we will be sharing the presentations, also the recording, with the participants. And also I would like to thank personally to Ms. Ayşe Deniz Özkan for moderating the training, also taking part as organization committee member. And we will be organizing many more events with Coursera, hopefully. Not only during EURIE Summit, but also before. So please keep following us for our next events. And regarding the certificate of attendance, we will be sharing the certificates with all registered and also attended participants soon. So if you don't receive in a week, please do keep in touch with us. So we will be helping you with the certificate. And we will be sending many follow-ups right after this training. And on behalf of EURAS, Eurasian Universities Union, and EURIE Summit, we would like to thank all Turkish universities participants, rectors, vice-rectors, deans, vice-deans, also teams from different departments. And let me continue in Turkish, and let me thank also in Turkish to our Turkish participants. Avrasya Üniversiteler Birliği EURAS ve Avrasya Yükseköğretim Zirvesi olarak tüm Türk üniversiteleri temsilcilerimize, değerli rektör, rektör yardımcıları, dekan, dekan yardımcıları ve bütün idari birim temsilcilerine katılımlarından dolayı çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Umuyoruz yararlı bir training etkinliği olmuştur. Coursera ile bu ilk yaptığımız ama sonuncu olmayacak etkinliklerimizin başlangıcıydı. Umuyoruz bizleri yakından takip edersiniz ve önümüzdeki etkinliklerimize de katılma şansınız olur. Bahsettiğim gibi belki başında kaçıranlar olduğu için Avrasya Yükseköğretim Zirvesi 3-5 Mart 2021 tarihlerinde Lütfi Kırdar Kongre Merkezi'ne gerçekleştirecek. 6. yılımızdayız. Sizlerin değerli destekleri için çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Conference call açık. Kendi alanınızda olsun, uluslararası eğitim alanında olsun, sunum yapmak isterseniz, yurt dışındaki Erasmus olsun, diğer uluslararası partnerleriniz veya ortak araştırmalarınızdaki partnerlerinizle birlikte panel düzenlemek isterseniz, işbirliğine ve desteğe, her türlü mentörlüğe hazırız. EURIE bölgemizin ve ülkemizin en büyük, dünyanın da 3. yükseköğretim etkinliği. Amerika'da gerçekleştirilen NAFSA veya Avrupa'da gerçekleştirilen EIE gibi. EURIE'nin daha büyümesi Türk üniversitelerimizin elinde. Çünkü bölgemizin milli bir etkinliği. Ulusal ve uluslararası kuruluşlar tarafından da desteklenen bir etkinlik. Sizleri de konuşmacı olarak, katılımcı olarak görmekten onur duyacağız. Ben tekrardan hem Coursera yetkililerimize hem de moderatörlüğü için, destekleri için Ayşe Deniz Özkan'a teşekkürlerimi sunmak istiyorum. Sorularınızı burada sorulmayanlar var. Onları not aldı Coursera yetkililerimiz. Sizlere dönüş yapacak ama sizler de kendileri iletişime geçebilirsiniz. Biz bu training esnasında yapılan sunumları sizlerle paylaşıyor olacağız. Ama hani her türlü yapabileceğimiz ortak proje, etkinlik ve önerileriniz için her zaman işbirliğine hazırız. Telefon ve iletişim bilgilerimiz sizde mevcut zaten. Katılmanız için çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Daha fazla vaktinizi almamak için burada sonlandırıyoruz. Umuyoruz ki ekran görüntülerimizi aldınız ve EURIE Online Training hashtag ile bizle paylaşırsınız. Biz de sizlerle tüm network'ümüze paylaşabilelim. Görüşmek üzere tekrardan. Hoşçakalın.
Thank you. Bye bye everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye Kerry, Adam, Natalia, Darren. Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Bye. Have a good afternoon.
You too.